Hi everyone, I'm Yvonne Schroff. I'm a student at University of Concordia, and today I'm producing this video to address culture, ethnicity, and race in education. I am looking to be an adult educator in the healthcare field, and I'm going to be facing these issues. Um, Questions like how do the social identities such as culture, ethnicity, and race impact myself, my students, or my school? Well, common social class is identified by economic status, and that's not necessarily fair. You have your poor, the working class, middle class, upper class, and upper middle class, sorry, and then upper class. Assumptions about these students based on their financial status is unfair and it's not equitable. As an educator, it's very important that I maintain equity within my classroom, that each student has access to the same materials and the same learning support services despite what their financial status is, despite where they come from or why they're in my class. As an adult educator, I will definitely be finding that I'll be dealing with multiple reasons for students to be in my class. Some will be traditional learners, where they are following a specific process to achieve a goal through education. Others will be there because they're required to, whether it's through an employment requirement, such as in some cases, some school districts have changed their standards for teachers, and they actually pay for the teachers to go to school and get further education, or in the medical field, a lot of times nurses who are LPNs will be required to go and further their education and become an RN, and the employer will actually pay for them to do so. So they're not necessarily wanting to be there, but for their career, they must. In another circumstance, in the state of Pennsylvania especially, I know there's a Title 55. It's called the Welfare to Work program. And under this program, there's a RESET program that allows students to go back to school through the Welfare to Work program. And it's actually a requirement if they can't find a job that they're skilled for. And it gives them skills to be self-sustainable in the future. I could do a great disservice to my students by assuming that my students are there for various reasons, whether they're there for traditional reasons or whether they're there for the Welfare to Work program, whether they're there because their employer is requiring them to be there. It's all irrelevant. I still have the same information to present to these students, and I need to do it in an equitable manner. Now, when we make assumptions about racial characteristics, it is a recipe for prejudice. Now, we can all say, oh, I'm not racist. And as soon as you say that, you've already opened a defensive mechanism within the listener, and they've already made an assumption that you are. We've also learned, through social media and over the years, that trying to also say that we are quote unquote colorblind is still a racial bias. The truth is that when you have a student in front of you, it is irrelevant why they're there, who they are, what they are, where they came from. It's only important where they're going. And that is what my goal is to help facilitate them to achieve the best of the education that they possibly can. When we make assumptions about racial and socio-economic characteristics, we do a great injustice to our students because the truth is rather different. According to the Huffington Post, in 2011, there are far more genetic variations within racial groups, about 85%, than there are between racial groups, which is only about 15%. Surface appearance is often a highly misleading way of assessing genetic distance between populations. So, why is there such a difference between us? And obviously, it has nothing to do with our color, our race, our ethnicity, our background, our financial class. There's a difference. I have identical twin boys, and I can tell you they are completely different people from the other. One's very educational oriented. He's a high achiever, high grade achiever. And the other, he's also very education oriented. However, his is a completely different path. And he also works full time, and he's already has his, a child in his life. They're completely different children of mine. So what is that difference? And how is it made? Well, there are some students that achieve and some don't. Okay, so why? Well, I believe my answer to that question, why do some students achieve and some students don't? My answer to that question is simply this: motivation. Personal, individual motivation. Why are they in the class? What do they want from it? Are they being forced? Do they feel defensive? Do they feel like they can succeed? Have they had bad experiences with education in the past? Is it something that I can do to make them a better education in the future? We need to make sure that equity is in the classroom. All students have access to all of the same materials and resources despite their economic status. I could not possibly ask a welfare quote unquote recipient to go out and buy $100 book as a supplement for my coursework. It wouldn't be fair. It wouldn't be equitable. So we need to make sure that what we're teaching and the resources are available to everyone. That is how the perspective of education affects how we teach. We need to make sure that we are being fair and equal and equitable. Forget who that person is sitting in your chair in front of you. Each person is a moldable ball of clay. That's what they are. And it's up to us to take that ball of clay and mold it into a great student for the coursework that you are teaching them, and making sure that you're doing everything you can to support that learning process. And I greatly appreciate your time with all this today. And if you have any questions, certainly feel free to look up some of the very important information you can find. Is a book called Focusing on Equity, Propelled Us from Good to Great. It's by an author named Mr. Sichel and Mr. Bacon. It's Excellence Through Equity, a book that we have through our school. A website that you can visit is Equality Edge at wordpress.com. Assumptions about racial characteristics, a recipe for prejudice. And also, just do yourself the favor of a general web search about how you can make a difference in someone's lives, whether you're an educator or not. Prejudice or bias is very dangerous, and it's ineffective. So it's important that we all understand this. Thank you. That was